Coming up on this edition of AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf, we'll look at the Eagles' conference opening win against the Terriers, scoring over 80 points. We'll be breaking it down Jay Hughes style, and we'll look forward to the Eagles' game against the Raiders. It all starts right now. And welcome into AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. Dan Lang alongside Coach Brennan, our first show of the new year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Dan.
Did you do anything special for New Year's Eve?
No, not really.
No?
I barely made it past midnight, to be honest.
But you stayed up till midnight.
I stayed up, yep.
All right, so you have one on me. Good way to start the conference season, the so-called second season of the year, when you guys come away with a win over BU, and not just a win, but a pretty good win. I mean, you guys scored 80 points and had some pretty good shots within the game.
Yeah, I thought we played really well offensively. They're a really good team. Obviously, league games are going to be, way more intense, way more difficult than your regular season game. So I thought our guys came out with great energy, and they sort of sustained it throughout the game.
And you did. You came out with good energy, but BU was sticking it early. I mean, they built up a 7-point lead at one point before it seems like you guys kind of started to get early on they were shooting over 70%, which you figured they weren't going to continue, and they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, they were getting offensive boards. They were getting to the rim. So I thought we adjusted. Once we saw what they were doing, I thought our guys responded. But we shared the ball. We tightened up our defense, I think, in the most of the latter part of the first half. I was pleased with how we played, but obviously always room for improvement.
You talk about sharing the ball, and that's something that you talk about a lot, but it's something you said that you specifically focused on leading into this game against BU. Why specifically here, and kind of how do you keep pounding that home to the guys?
We focused on defense a ton before the GW game, and I thought our defense was good. Mm-hmm. But we didn't share the ball the way I would like our guys to against GW. So coming into this game, we had two sort of hard practices and just sort of trying to hammer home that point. And again, it's sort of the ebb and flow of the season. You concentrate on certain things in practice, and other things may sort of slide, so you just got to keep sort of reintroducing concepts that are important, and hope that your team gets it and they're able to sort of do everything that's needed in a game.
BU is one of the best teams at scoring in the paint this year in all of Division I basketball. You guys against Boston University actually scored more than them in the paint. How happy are you with that component of the performance?
Yeah, well, having Mark back is huge. Just to have that presence inside, and BU is good. I mean, they got those big forwards that they look to throw it to in over and over. They got Mahoney, who's between him and Scanlon's a former quarterback. Mahoney's a football player, so Scanlon's comfortable just lobbing it up and letting Mahoney go get it. So I think, I thought we did a decent job, on them. We could be better, but just us being able to score inside, I think, opens up things for Saeed, for Sam, for everybody on the perimeter.
You mentioned Saeed. He was the player of the game in the sense that he scored 30, which is a season high for him, and really had a good bounce-back game after the game against GW when he scored only 7 and ended up fouling out of the game. He really came out with purpose against the Terriers.
He really did, yeah. And we asked so much of him, and he's been great all season, so I expect him to have a game or two where he just whether it's just not into it, missing shots, bad decisions, whatever it is. But I thought he was terrific, right from the get-go, just looking for his teammates. And usually when he's in the mindset of just looking, just letting the game come and seeing the game and looking out and trying to get others involved, he has his highest scoring outputs. So it was great to see him, do that. And again, he was terrific on defense as well.
Let's jump into Larry Matuzis a little bit. We haven't really talked about him a lot on the show. He had a really big shot for you guys. You guys had opened up a big lead on the Terriers. At one point it was 16, 17 points. They battled back, cut it to 6. Larry was in and stuck a 3, and that really helped swing the momentum.
Yeah, no, that was a huge shot, and I was happy for Larry to see him make that, because he does so many things. He's one of our hardest workers. He expends so much energy on defense. I thought he was, did a lot of really good things defensively last night, including rebounding a little bit more. So making that three was just icing on the cake for the game that he had.
And you mentioned the hard work. I saw him out before the game taking some extra shots, some extra three-point attempts in practice. When you see what he's done and how he's bought in sort of to a bit of a role change this year, he's obviously not scoring as much as he did last year. Seems like he's really bought in. And as a coach, you've got to be happy with that. And that's important to see guys be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he understands that, what we need from him as a senior. It's all the little things, all the tough things. That's why he actually played more last night, because in a league game, we needed sort of, a little more grittiness and toughness on defense, and he gives us that. So, if he keeps doing those things, he'll really help us win.
What is it with Sam Iorio and the Terriers? I mean, he had fantastic games in both of the games last year that you guys played BU, and in the first game here against the Terriers, he scored 23 and, again, had a big effect on the game, played some pretty strong D as well.
Yeah, no, Sam was really good. I think in, his first two games against BU, they played us a lot of zone. He was playing the center spot, so he got a bunch of open looks just because of that. But now, they played us, a lot more man-to-man last night. But, again, it goes back to sort of Gasparini and Saeed sort of doing what we need them to do. Gets Sam his open shots. And, Sam was cutting. He had some drives. He had some looks in the post. So he just continues to expand his game, which we need him to do.
How important is it for you to get off to a good start in Patriot League play? I know it's kind of a cliched question, but you get the win in the first game, and that helps set the tone. Last few years, you weren't able to get that win in the first game in conference play. This year, you were. And that's got to have a lot of positive and happy tones in the locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just playing well, I think, is important. Just improving and playing well. Win or lose. Everyone talks about you got to try to get all your home games and then win half on the road or whatever the numbers may be. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, I'm just looking to see if our team is dialed in, locked in defensively, and then just sharing the ball and doing the things that we emphasize offensively. I think if we do that consistently, throughout the season, whether we're at home or on the road, I think we'll have success.
And the Eagles will take to the road for their next game that is upcoming on Sunday at Colgate. It's time for our first time out here on AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. Back with more right after this.
Welcome to our sleepy little college town. You may have heard of us. Here we stand up for causes as naturally as we sit down for classes. We believe that knowledge, understanding, and discovery will make the world a better place, and that our contributions are only limited by our imaginations. Words, medals, and degrees don't make us who we are. Meaningful change does.
We are American.
And there's nothing we would rather be.
Welcome back to AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. Now joined by my longtime broadcast partner, Jeremy Huber. Jay Hubes, thanks for taking some time.
No problem, Dan. Thanks
for
having me.
Yeah. So you've been here over a decade.
And a lot longer than a decade, actually. 2005, 2006 was my first season.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of not just AU basketball, but a lot of AU sports, athletics events in total. But let's rewind and go back to how it all started, how you got here to Tenleytown.
It's one of those random stories. I mean, you've had a few of these in your career, but I literally was sitting in Larry Michaels' office, the voice of the Washington Redskins, who I worked for at Westwood One at the time, was doing an interview I was taping for a high school football game halftime show because it's the playoffs. There's nothing to talk about. And Larry gets a phone call from Dave Beerworth, still here at American, and he goes, puts the phone to his chest and goes like, Larry says, "Hey buddy, do you do basketball?" I'm like, yeah. He goes, okay, he'll call you in 10 minutes. And he just said, "Hey, call this guy Dave, and they're looking for someone to do games." And I called Dave, and Dave said, "Yeah, we need you to do a few games because Bram Weinstein, of course, who everyone knows, AU alum, broadcaster, and Mike Valancourt were kind of switching off, and Bram was missing some games due to his Redskins duties. I think Mike had a few games off, so I was supposed to be just a fill-in." Well, that was the year the Redskins made one of their runs to the playoffs, and Bram couldn't do it as much and just kind of had to back out, so I became the full-time color guy.
That's pretty cool, and what it's blossomed into here, because not just are you doing basketball, but you're also doing the play-by-play for wrestling. You're doing women's field hockey, women's lacrosse. That's got to be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a different perspective,
Sure.
obviously, than doing this, but I like doing the play-by-play, and one of the things about America that's really cool is and you know this, doing volleyball with Barry. Mm-hmm. American really puts a lot into their other sports. So you talk about wrestling with Teague, that's a big deal around here. You talk about field hockey with Steve Jennings, that's a big deal around here. So kind of to be able to do this and do sports where a lot of folks really care about it, and around here and even back home, and that was one of the really cool things this year. Annika Groszinski, one of the players for the field hockey team, her parents from Germany came over on senior day, made a point to come over to me after the game was over and thank me for doing the games and how exciting it was for the last few years.
International. Jay Hughes going international.
So, but that is a fun component of this, especially an international school like American that, brings these players in. People actually are, getting a chance to hear your work and really appreciate it.
And you've sort of been a guy that's done the play-by-play there, but you do the analysis on the basketball broadcast. So you're kind of looking at the game through a different lens.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, and I tell this to folks who do play-by-play and come to do color with me, don't try and be the guy who's going to completely analyze everything. My basketball background may be not as good as some others, but I've watched the game for a while, and being around the coaches we've been around between Jeff Jones and Mike Brennan, two really good basketball minds. Yep. You're just picking stuff up by osmosis at that point. But the way you attack it may be not the same way, but I think it's enjoyable for the listeners. We have a lot of the fans come up to us and say, "I just love the way you and Dan do a game." So that kind of makes it fun.
Now, when you look back and you speak of fun, we've had a lot of fun.
Yes.
Over the decade or so we've been doing games together. What are a couple of the games that really stick out to you? Of course, you got to think back to a couple of the tournament games we had the luck of doing, and a couple of the Patriot League championship games. Any other games really stick out to you that maybe aren't necessarily ones that would stick out to other people if they're just looking at top games in the AU lore?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, the Villanova game where the Brian Gilmore's three that rimmed in and out. You're like, could be up 17 on Villanova. That's one you and I both remember. The championship games were obviously great. Both the ones I did with you and did with Mike were, again, just the energy here at Bender. But we were talking a little bit before the semifinals, the year that Mike and company won the championship. Mm-hmm. They played Holy Cross and were down, going into the second half, and then Mike threw his own at them, and the guys executed it very well, and Holy Cross didn't score. And I remember looking at Milan Brown and just kind of throwing his hands up. He just couldn't figure out, like, his guys just did not score for about 13 minutes, but that was a fun one. Kind of looking back, some of the other close games that they had along the way. A couple of my favorites, again, in Mike's first year, the game against Boston, where BU was the team coming in that year. Everyone expected them coming from the America East just to kind of dominate, and it might even been it was one of the first home games, I think, after the break in a conference play, and just to see that team beat them by 30 and kind of fast break them to death, and you and I are looking at each other going, oh, okay, right. We got a chance to be pretty good this year. And really, even another one was Bucknell that same year. Dave Paulson, the coach at George Mason, great coach, and to see American go up really in their first conference game with the new Princeton offense and just slice and dice a really good Bucknell team. Now, of course, they came back and won when they played at Bender that year. It shows how good of a program they are. But, those are a couple of the few that stand out in my mind.
You mentioned that Terriers game, that 30-point win.
Yes.
That's the Terriers' worst loss in Patriot League time that they've been in the conference. So that speaks. So they've now been here 6 years.
Yeah,
and that's their worst loss.
And it was so nutty because you're saying Princeton offense going to be slow. You might squeak a win out. And just to see the way that Pee Wee Gardner pushed the pace with John Schoaf and Jesse Reed and Tony Rablicki and all those guys who, kind of could play that system too, did a great job adjusting to what Mike wanted to do, but could get out and run like that and really put a team that good away. It was just, again, good coaching and good adjustments and good players as well.
And some of the most memorable players, I know, for me, some guys that really stick out. Pee Wee Gardner, of course, he's got to be one with just as much energy as he played with and living up to the name. Mm-hmm. And Garrison Carr, just what a sharpshooter he was. Brian Gilmore was a great Patriot League player. Just a couple guys that kind of stick out for me. Who sticks out for you as a couple players that really are ones that you think about?
All those guys, but obviously Derek Mercer. That's been a key throughout my whole time here at American. The Eagles have been their best when they have a really good point guard. Derek Mercer, and then obviously Pee Wee, and now Saeed Nelson kind of carrying on that tradition. So that has been really big. I was here for Andre Ingram going into the Hall of Fame. He was a very good player here. Kind of was that first leader of the first teams I was calling games for. But one of my favorites was Tony Rablicki as well. I like Tony, especially his story was so good because his first 3 years, he really never got his footing. And then that last year, and again, it kind of shows a little bit of Mike and his coaching prowess. They brought Pete Krill in. They kind of worked on the one-handed free throws a little bit, but that made Tony a better player because he had that confidence that, hey, I can go to the basket, get fouled, and I'll be able to hit my shots at the charity stripe. You could see him get more aggressive and be a better player since then. So, again, there's a few guys that stand out to me.
All right, so let's jump into some things. I know you're not the biggest fan of traveling, not the biggest fan of sort of getting out of the comfort zone, and we had a chance to travel a lot via air, and, of course, driving. You weren't such a big fan of my driving, I know, especially on the drive to Colgate, which would last 7 hours or so. The planes. I know there were a couple times you really weren't too pleased. You were a little scared, especially one time you asked me when we were sort of banking around and we were coming back to DCA for a little emergency landing action.
Yeah, that was the Holy Cross, I believe, where we pretty much, I think, were up past New York, if not even closer than that, and then they had to turn the plane around because of an issue. And luckily, experienced traveler you kind of explained it to me. There was another one coming back, I believe, from LSU a couple years ago where we hit a lot of turbulence, like in the Dallas, the Arkansas area coming back, and that wasn't bad. But at one point, we're coming down, and I had become a little bit of a frequent flyer at that point and knew the way back into National, and I'm going. They had said, it'll be about 10 minutes before we land. I'm going, we should have been landed by now. That was not a good day. I got kind of a little sweaty that time, a little bit of panic, but I survived.
And as far as food goes, we got a chance to get some great cannolis in Boston.
One of your favorites. Got a sweet treat for you.
Indeed, some sweet treats. Another sweet treat that I thoroughly enjoy, the Colgate Inn, the nice chocolate chip pie. What sticks out for you as far as the feasting goes?
Oh, man, there's been so many. Actually, and I really wasn't prepared. Shocker, you'd see my physique. I think I was a little more prepared about this. But, all the places. I remember out in Walnut Creek, we did the St. Mary's game, a good restaurant out there, a couple good restaurants. But, most of the spots, that's
LSU, we had Alligator.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't remember that. I got to think back on some of these things. But, just different spots. And I remember Minnesota, Manny's, their nice steakhouse up there really was it was a combo between the two of us, a little more working class with me, some of your fine taste in food. We both enjoyed it. So that was a good one as well.
Indeed. And those are just some of our memories that we've had in the decade or so that we've worked together here at AU. Thanks for stopping by and sharing some of it.
No problem, Dan.
Many more great memories to come and more on AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan as we continue next.
Welcome to our sleepy little college town. You may have heard of us. Here we stand up for causes as naturally as we sit down for classes. We believe that knowledge, understanding, and discovery will make the world a better place, and that our contributions are only limited by our imaginations. Words, medals, and degrees don't make us who we are. Meaningful change does.
We are American.
And there's nothing we would rather be.
Welcome back to AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf. And Coach, taking to the road, the longest road trip of the year. I guess it's good to sort of get it out of the way here. A chance to go up to Colgate and 6-7 hour bus ride.
A lot of time to watch film, for sure.
So it's watching film, no movies, no.
No movies.
All right. When you've already gotten into film some on Colgate, what have you seen from a team that played pretty well non-conference style?
Yeah, no, they're really good. I mean, they got Raymond, who's one of the best players in the league, and Burns, who's another one of the better players in the league. I think they added some really good pieces with the transfer they got, and they're hungry. They sort of know what goes into winning. They know how hard this going through league play is. So I know they'll be ready for us.
And you talk about being hungry. A guy that seems to be hungry for you guys is Josh Alexander, won Patriot League Rookie of the Week a couple weeks ago, and continues to play well against BU. We saw a couple of nice underhooks from him.
Yeah, now Josh has given us really good minutes. Again, I want to get him in more because he's a good player, and he can do a lot of different things. He can facilitate, makes other people better. He's a very good passer, and he's aggressive. He goes after the ball, goes after rebounds. I just see his offensive game expanding. I don't want to say easily, because it's going to require a lot of work, but he just really understands how to play, and he picks things up quickly. As you see, he's scoring in the post against, big, veteran bodies early in his career, so that's good to see.
It seems like he's able to move down there confidently, which you don't see a lot from young players.
Yeah, and he can go both ways. He's comfortable going to his left, going to his right. We're getting good production in the post from both him, Mark, and YY.
And you mentioned Mark Gasparini had to miss a couple of games because of strep throat. Had a double-double in the game against GW and played pretty well in the game against BU, and has that hook shot going. Is that something you guys specifically work on with him, or is that just part of his game?
No, we teach it, and he works on it a ton. But again, they're scoring in different ways down there. And again, he's just getting comfortable, still sort of figuring things out as well as he's played. There's still so much more that he can do from a comfort level of understanding, and sort of even being more dominant down there, drawing attention, kicking it out, or drawing it, or scoring himself.
And I'm sure that that's what Coach is going to be looking for from Gasparini in the game against Colgate, which is coming up on Sunday at 2 o'clock. Then the Eagles are right back inside Bender Arena on Wednesday against Navy against the Mids. For Coach, I'm Dan. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.